Hello. Thank you for joining our webinar today, whether you're watching this live or on replay. Today's webinar will be around DBT Core from a customer managed perspective of what's included and what's not included. Before we jump into it, thank you to all of our customers, our employees, our partners, our advisors, our friends of the company. Thank you for your partnership, for the trust we have in each other. Thank you for the opportunity to work together. And for those of you that haven't had a chance and opportunity, we look forward to earning that right to earn your trust through a partnership. This webinar is part of a overall series of webinars related to DBT. And whether we're talking about DBT Core or Cloud, getting going with DBT, migrating to DBT, whatever your journey is, we have a number of different webinars that you can watch on replay or live. Feel free to check us out on social media, LinkedIn, YouTube. To watch these, you do not have to watch them in any particular order, and you can pick and choose which one or which ones you want to watch. So we think of DBT, or the Data Build Tool. DBT is an industry-leading data orchestration, or data quality, and data catalog tool. It plays a role in that overall stack, where DBT is going to handle the transformations once your data is landed into your centralized data cloud, really the technology of your choice as to where you're going to centralize or land that data. DBT doesn't care how the data gets there. DBT just needs to know where is the data, and it will issue pushdown SQL to the appropriate data store that your data is stored within, and naturally taking advantage of that pushdown SQL to leverage the power of the underlying data or database technology in order to transform that data into whether it's data model, data cleansing, there's moving data around to make it more accessible to your analytic tools, whether those are visualization, operational analytics, data science. DBT has the power and the capabilities to handle the most mundane to the very highly complex situations. Obviously, every customer has their own unique data journey, data needs, but DBT is able to handle all of those different scenarios. DBT comes in two major different flavors is the best way to put it. There's DBT Core and DBT Cloud. So today we'll be spending in this webinar the time talking about DBT Core. Other webinars go deeper into DBT Core, but they also touch upon DBT Cloud. And really this webinar and the series of webinars is to inform you, you as the buyer, you as the user of the technology, so that you can make as an informed business decision as possible as to which route you want to go, whether it's DBT Core or DBT Cloud. But within DBT Core, there are some options as well that you have as to how much do you want to take on yourself versus leveraging a technology to help manage your DBT Core. When you think of DBT Core versus DBT Cloud, DBT Core, that is essentially roll your own. You're going to leverage the open source version of DBT. You're going to do all of the installation and configuration. You're going to do all of the maintenance that's associated to it. And so naturally, when we think of a subscription perspective, DBT Core is quote unquote the cheapest, where DBT Cloud has a fully automated and fully integrated set of technology that's a SaaS-based platform that you tap into the power of DBT, but you don't have to worry about all the maintenance and management and configuration that goes along with setting up that environment. You get to use that through a web interface, but you also get all of the power of DBT as well. So DBT Cloud, depending upon how many folks in your organization want to use DBT Cloud, comes with a higher upfront cost because of a subscription with that. At the end of the day, the dollar amount from an upfront perspective shouldn't be where you start in making an informed decision as to, is DBT Core or DBT Cloud right for me? Understanding what you get and what you don't get with DBT Core is very important to be able to say, what are my true operational costs upfront and ongoing that come with DBT Core, which will help justify potentially, if it's right for you, to move to DBT Cloud or to go with DBT Core. I'm Mike Jelen. I have multiple years or decades, I should say, of experience in the data analytics ecosystem, working from small to mid-size to enterprise level customers. And at the end of the day, yes, the technology is important, but it's all about creating the value by using data and analytics. And that value needs to translate into top line growth, bottom line growth, whether that's through OpEx, helping to influence the organization to become a data-driven company. And we at AICG, we are all about data and analytics, from a strategy through implementation to support, and really using technology to support and address business or organizational use cases. Technology is very powerful, it's very interesting unto itself, but it's the application of the technology as to where you get the real business value and your return on that investment is truly seen at the end of the day. And a lot of that is done through the partnerships that we have. Our customers today would say, yes, we're a partner, not a body shop, not just hired guns. It's understanding what are those business and organizational use cases, and to leveraging the appropriate technology, not just any technology or a select list of one size fits all technology in order to provide that business value. Let's dive a little bit deeper into when we say DBT Core and the customer manage, what do you get? And then what are some things that you don't get? And again, this is all about helping you to make an informed decision on which is appropriate for you to go down the DBT Core or DBT Cloud. Or perhaps you make a conscious decision to say, we're going to start with DBT Core, and then at some point there will be a natural inflection that we need to move to cloud. Whatever your journey is, again, all about the education and helping you. So when you think of DBT Core, yes, DBT is open source. If you go with DBT Core, you essentially need to have a server and a developer environment. So your server traditionally runs on a VM. That could be on-premise. It could be in a public cloud of your choosing. But you're going to need to install some software on there in order to get DBT Core to work appropriately. We're also presuming that you're going to have more than one developer, and that developer is going to be doing their true development on their laptop or their IDE. You may determine that each individual developer gets their own VM. That's fine. You definitely do not want to have the developer developing on the same machine where your DBT Core server is running. You want that separation, so one, you can scale, and two, when we say scale, adding more developers, not having contention of doing things on DBT core server. It's just the best practice for each developer to do their own work on their own VM or their own laptop. And then using a check-in, check-out DevOps CI/CD approach, you're able to then push those changes to the server. And from there, the server will run and execute your job or jobs at the end of the day. So while there are a number of things that you need to install, you also need to remember, depending upon how your organization's security is set up, especially those larger, more mature enterprise organizations, whether you have a VM or perhaps even on your laptop, you'll have to grant list to ensure the firewall is not blocking certain URLs or certain hosts that, whether it's the core server or IDE, needs access to. And this grant list isn't an all-inclusive list. If you're using Databricks or Redshift or a different technology, naturally your grant list is going to look slightly different. If you're using Microsoft versus another Git platform, that too will be different and impact your grant list. But it's really all about, here's a sample to help you get started and to understand and to remember you will need to grant list certain URLs. And if you say, well, we don't have to worry about grant listing because we don't care, our servers can go anywhere and everywhere, definitely take a step back and ask yourself or ask your security people, is that the best practice that we want to enforce? Yes, you might say in the short term, it's much easier for me to just go wherever I want to go on the internet on my VM. But think about this from the point of whether it's your server, your IDE, do you want those machines or either one of those machines to be able to go wherever it wants? Does it want to be open and accessible on the internet as a whole? In this day and age, hopefully you're saying, well, no, I don't want this to be an exposed VM. I don't want this to be somewhere that I let anybody and everybody connect to. Or if someone is able to get in, that they can go wherever they want to from there. Keep that control so that you control and you put those safeguards in place from a security perspective. So look at a picture of what your server would look like as to how some of these components fit together, work together. So naturally you have a virtual machine. And on that virtual machine, you will have your DBT core that's going to be installed in a Kubernetes container. And then you leverage something along the lines of a Jenkins or Airflow in order to handle the job scheduling. When are my packages going to run within, or when are my jobs within DBT going to run? How often are they going to run? Now, Jenkins is going to help control that. And naturally, DBT needs to tie into Git, whether that's through Azure, GitHub, Bitbucket, etc. You choose your own adventure as to which way you want to go so that you have that ability to leverage that check-in and check-out. You're having a branching style for your developers. And I definitely understand for many organizations, especially organizations that have been using a traditional ETL tool, that this check-in, check-out, especially branching and push down SQL, that you're telling DBT, push this SQL, this ANSI compliant SQL down into the underlying database technology, whether that's Snowflake, Redshift, Databricks, etc. That is a very large culture shift. It's a technical shift as well for those developers that are used to the ETL world, where now they're coming to the ELT world. And sometimes they definitely need some education. They need a small project or two that everyone can rally around, everyone can understand as to how this paradigm shift will occur and the benefits to the paradigm shift. What things do you get in an ELT world that you don't get in an ETL world? Don't underestimate that change management. For many organizations, especially more established organizations that have been using ETL for 10 plus years, it's a very large shift in thinking. And that thinking naturally translates into, well, why are we doing this check in and check out? Why are we talking about push down versus I've always built my SQL within my ETL tool and it just handles it. We won't go any deeper into that, but just be mindful of that change management. So your dbt core virtual machine, where your dbt core server is running, looks along the lines of this. Now, for some organizations, you will say, well, we're a little more complex. We have Control M. That is what our help desk uses. It could be level 1, could be level 2, in order to check on the status of a job. They could receive an error message, or they get a phone call that says, AB, my data is not available. Please make it available. That first step in your standard operating procedures could be just, I'm just going to rerun Control M in order to rerun that job that's going to essentially be running in Jenkins on the dbt core server. Some of you, especially the ETL folks, say, well, we want to leverage dbt core. We want to get started. However, we know we're a big Informatica shop today. You're big ODI, big data stage, big what have you organization that uses ETL. And you already have standard operating procedures. You have lanes and policies that people have to abide by. And so you still need to leverage, for now, your current technology stack. But you need and want dbt core in order to align accordingly. So you can still use your Control M, you can still use your Informatica in order to interact with your dbt core server, which is great. But there's definitely some pros that, of course, come with leveraging dbt core from the customer managed, where you, the customer, are managing all the individual pieces. You get to start using dbt for transformations to leverage the power of not only doing that push down SQL, but to leverage variables from one environment to the next, to use CI/CD, to go into a DevOps framework of operation. Naturally, dbt has self-documentation, has visual lineage, and all of that is part of dbt. And when you are fully leveraging dbt core as the open source, there's no subscription needed from an upfront perspective. Obviously, you have the time that goes into it in order to do that setup and configuration and connecting the pieces. And at least from a dbt perspective, there are no direct costs related to dbt. But there's definitely some things that you don't get with the customer managed dbt core option. You have to be prepared, you and your organization, to have the skills to be able to do this installation. But more importantly, you need to understand, what is your open source software policy? Some organizations are very strict and say it has to go through a certain level of review. Other organizations say, well, as long as you're working with software in a closed environment, so the VMs don't have access to the internet, or they have very limited access based upon some of the grant list firewall things we talked about earlier. And you have the skill sets in order to work, to do the installation configuration, which is great up front. You may even, or you will have maintenance things. A new version of dbt core comes out. What do you do? Something breaks on your server. What do you do? Great. But there's also some limitations with DBT Core from a purpose perspective, is that the number of projects, which equates to the number of jobs that you have running, you need to add additional Kubernetes clusters or containers in order to run DBT Core, so you can have multiple DBT jobs running at a time. If you're just doing a POC, kicking the tires, perhaps this last part isn't as important to you. But if you're going to productionalize and have multiple DBT jobs, because you might have a nightly load, you have a weekly load, more importantly, you will have different transformations relative to the different data sets, maybe even data sources, and those, their data models or data consumers that you are serving, where having a single job is very painful and you need more flexibility. So you have that option to add those Kubernetes containers. Again, what is your open source software policy? And do you have the skill sets? And more importantly, do those people that have the skill sets, do they have the time? Looking to add this to their plate. It's one thing to carve out time from a project perspective to say up front, you're going to have X hours devoted to this getting going. Great. Go beyond that. What if things start to break? Are they going to be the ones that are available either the middle of the night or the middle of the day in order to drop things, to change the priority of other projects and initiatives that they're working on? So now you get into, from a risk management perspective, whether you are a data and analytics manager, director, or leader elsewhere in the organization, to say, do I want a technology stack where I'm leveraging a Snowflake, a Databricks, a Redshift? I already have an Informatica. I'm leveraging Azure. I'm leveraging Redshift. I'm Amazon or GCP. I'm subscribing to all these different services, and it's consumption-based subscription. However, I now have a point in my infrastructure that isn't as strong as reliable because I'm manually maintaining all the different pieces. You have to make the right decision to say, do I want to take on all of this manual maintenance and configuration or not? Because at the end of the day, technology is great unto itself. However, it's the application of how is this technology improving my organization to meet business or organizational objectives? How does this help reduce costs? Those costs could be charting a path for sunsetting legacy technology. Could be a path of, we just need to get going. We don't have legacy technology, but we want to get going and start using DBT as quickly as possible. Great. But understand where you're going to spend your time. Is it better spent delivering value to the business or organization, or getting the nuts and bolts working and then keeping the lights on over time? Where do we go from here? Understand your company's open source policy. Do you have one? Great. That's going to help guide you. If you don't have one, ask around. And then, do you have the skills to set up and maintain your DBT core server and VM, and to connect those to your different applications? Do they have the time in order to do that? Which naturally will come back around. You may have questions on the configuration relative to your particular architecture and your environment and where you want to start, and perhaps you need a roadmap. We'd love to talk with you, give you the guidance based upon our years of experience working with DBT and other customers like yourself. Thank you for watching or attending this webinar today. Please feel free to reach out to us, whether it's through social media, online, or you can even drop me a line directly. We appreciate you attending this today or watching this on replay. Thank you and look forward to seeing you next time.